doing well. My name is Zorita. If you are new to my ministry, welcome. And if you are returning, hey, how are you guys doing? All right, today I want to talk to you guys about something that has come up in my personal life, a conversation, if you will. So I thought, let's pose this to my friends here. So, it is one of those things where, as a Christian, are we allowed to really express our emotions to God? And, and these are, of course, you think, well, of course, we praise Him, we worship Him, we cry out to Him. Those are the obvious, but we are not always in a place of prayer, in a place of feeling happy and rejoiceful. There are times on our Christian walk and just living in this broken world, that we are dealing with all of the emotions at any given time that, we are walking through this life. And so in this particular conversation I was having, it was, because I was expressing to the Lord, my frustrations and, my frustrations, not only just with what I was dealing with, but with Him. And, this particular person was like, oh my God, don't stand near me, because when the lightning strikes, I don't want to be near you, type of thing. And it actually made me pause and think for a moment, like, am I wrong in that? But so, of course I had to look into it. But here's the thing, I'm thinking, I'm talking to the Lord, and I said, Lord, why would you give me all of these emotions? Not just me, but everybody, every woman, every man, every child. Why would we have all of these emotions if they were not a part of how we would express how we're feeling about a situation? Now, so I started looking in the Bible at all of my dear friends. And so I want to talk to you today about, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? And I want us to visit some of the folks that are some of the our Hall of Faith friends, and some that are not in the Hall of Faith but exhibited bold faith for the Lord. And even in the face of opposition and fear, they still stood. And there were times where they really did express themselves. And I think when you are in a relationship, like when you're in a relationship with, your parents or your children or anyone that you have established, some intimate conversations, you've shared parts of your life with this person. Anytime that is there, I feel you should be able, it should be a safe place. If you are sharing parts of the most vulnerable parts of yourself with someone, you have already made the decision that this person is safe or should be safe. And the Lord, He wants us to be in relationship with Him. It is religion that keeps us acting like, I'm super Christian. Hey, look at me, super Christian Serena. Yes, I'm an apostle. But yes, there are days that I have traveled on during this walk that has been beyond hard. Beyond hard. Okay, and I can't even emphasize that enough. And there's been times when I was like, Lord, why? Just why, Lord? Why? I need answers. I need understanding, even if I don't know all the ins and outs, like why or why me? Can anybody relate? Can anybody, or am I just the only one out here that is still under development? But so we're going today talk about some of the men of the Bible that expressed various emotions. And then the next video, we're going to talk about the women that expressed their different emotions, and we're going to see that God He's a big God. And he's not all in his emotions. He's not petty. He's not, do you think a big God that created all of this is moved by our little whimpers, our little crying, our little snotting and tears? But, at the same time, there, of course, should always be respect there. And I think you can express yourself respectfully to the Lord. And, I think he respects that you're being honest. Because when you're just holding it in, you're bottling all of those emotions in, even if it's not towards God, maybe it's towards your spouse or someone else that you're in close relationship with. Anytime you're just bottling up those emotions, you're not doing yourself or that person and that relationship any justice. And this is where the enemy comes in. He wants you to just hold on to it and just fester in it and just feel all your feelings. But when you let this out, the enemy doesn't get to use it. And then you can go behind it when you get yourself together and say, was I right in how I said it? And then you can have another conversation with the Lord that expresses, either you need to repent. Even if you need to repent, the fact is that you got it out of you. And I believe this is where the Lord wants us. He wants us in a relationship with him. And he wants us to be honest. Otherwise, you're walking around a fake Christian, okay? And we're not being fake, but keep it respectful, whether it's to someone else that's in your life, but especially when you're dealing with the Lord. So we know Jonah. Jonah, and so I'm gonna put scriptures here. We're not gonna go, I think I'm gonna walk with you through maybe one of these gentlemen, and the others I will put the scriptures, and on your own time, go and read it for yourself. And I wanted to talk about this because there's so much going on right now in the news, things that are happening to our children, and the enemy is trying to bring division or more division between races, and it's through the parts of us as adults, as parents, that hurts us the most when our children are being harmed. And nothing riles us up more than when you come, Lord have mercy, and you do something to a parent's child. But this is even God, okay? So let's not make any mistakes. When Stephen was being stoned, when Jesus died, the Father said, come and sit at my right hand while I make your enemies your footstool. But when Stephen was stoned, he said he looked up and the heavens opened and he saw Jesus standing at the right hand of the Father. Listen, you don't want him to get up off that throne, okay? Let him sit there and make his decisions. But them same men that crucified him were now stoning Stephen. And I know he didn't take that lightly. Because anytime you go from a seated to I'm getting up, the God of gods and the King of kings and the Lord of lords, Jesus now being the one that judges all, those that were a part of that, it didn't go well for them. So that is going to take us now over here into Jonah. So, God wanted Jonah to go and, give a word, if you will, to the people over here in Nineveh. I'll put the name right here, okay? And Jonah was like, okay, I'll do that, Lord. But as soon as the Lord was done talking, Jonah went the whole opposite direction. He was like, I'm not feeling that. I'm not feeling that. I'm not in agreement with that. Lord, and in his mind, now he isn't saying anything to the Lord. When the Lord is telling him to do something, he's not giving his thoughts and opinion. But in his heart, he's like, I'm not. I don't like none of those people. They don't deserve your love and compassion. And I know what you planning on doing, because you always so compassionate with people that just need to be judged and handled. So Jonah was like, I'm not doing it. So we already know what happened to Jonah, right? But here's the part. Jonah was disagreeing with God's decision. He didn't feel like the people, over there on that island, in that area, deserved God's love and compassion. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm really glad that Jonah got that whale, was the appetite of the whale for a little while, because we all need God's love and compassion and faithfulness and forgiveness. I need it all the time. So if anybody says, I'm not telling Zarina something because she doesn't need it and she deserves, and this, Lord, let the whale come. and because I need all the compassion that the Lord would give me, and his grace and his mercy. And so we see that, the Lord has a way of helping you change your mind. He's like, let me help you with your perspective. So, and while you sit over here in the belly of this whale for a little while, I'm sure you'll come around to what I told you to do. And sure enough, 3 days there in the belly of that whale, he was like, Lord, I think I'm good now. The Lord's like, yeah, okay. But this is how a father, because all I can see is how we as parents, have had to handle our children, especially when they're little. You put them in time out. So Jonah was in time out, but not in a corner, something that was more befitting a grown man. And so he put him in the belly of a whale. But he was kind enough to let that whale spit him out right in the area of, where he needed to go and tell the people. And because he did it, those people were then able to turn away from their wicked ways, turn to God. And souls were saved for that. Not just one soul, but even if it was one is enough. But it was a whole area. It was all of the people. And so this is Jonah and his feelings. Now, let's talk about my friend Moses. Now, we already know Moses was told to go and talk to Pharaoh. And Moses was like, who am I? Who am I that you would tell me to go talk to Pharaoh? I can't even talk straight. Like, no. And then who am I supposed to say sent me? Like, Moses was like saying no. You know how they say those statements. Say no without saying no. So Moses gave the Lord all of these no's without saying no. And the Lord was just like, oh, these doggone people I done created. So Aaron then has to go, and he is the mouthpiece for Moses. And so, but we can just see, and Moses didn't make it in the promised land because he kept getting angry with all of the, the Israelites. They was just, they were annoying, they were complaining, they were doing and saying all the things all the time. And Moses was getting in trouble with the Lord. Like, he broke the commandments and that shattered, and then he had to get it done all over again. The Lord instructed him to do one thing, and he did another thing in regards to the rock. And the Lord was like, listen, you're not going to make it in this promised land. But he didn't make it to the promised land while living. But he was there in that promised land on the Mount of what is it called? Mount of Reformation, when Jesus was praying and Elijah and Moses came and encouraged him. So reformation. And so we see the feelings, in Moses, there's this doubt, there's fear, there's apprehension. He's like, there's a lot of people, you just want me to do it. And Pharaoh is a king. I'm no one in regards to that person at that level. But these are feelings. And so feelings that are being expressed to a mighty God. And so now we're going to go and check out our friend Abraham. And so I want to take us over to Genesis 18. Now this one is really good because in Genesis 18, chapter 18, we're going to kind of pick up around verse 22. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it is a little bit. Verse 22, it says, the men turned away and went towards Sodom. So this is where Abraham is pleading for Sodom to God. So they went away towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Verse 23, then Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? And so then in verse 24, in verse 24, he goes on and is like, Lord, if there are 50 righteous people, will you kill these 50 righteous people that are standing right beside the wicked in Sodom? The Lord is like, no, I won't do that. I will preserve those 50. And then he goes down and then he starts now with, he comes backward to the Lord. He says, okay, now Lord, what if there's 5 less than 50 righteous people? Will you still, destroy those 45 along with the wicked? The Lord says, no, Abraham, I won't do that. And so Abraham's like, okay, Lord, let me just ask you one more time. I love it because he says, okay, Lord, what if there's 40 righteous people among those wicked? Will you destroy the 40? God says, no, Abraham, I won't destroy the 40. He goes down. And so now we're over here at verse 30. He says, then he said, may the Lord not be angry, because, he has just, questioned the Lord 3 times. And now he's like, let the Lord not be angry. But I got one more question. So then over in verse, where are we at now? Still in verse 30, he wants to know, Lord, if there's only 30 righteous, will you destroy the 30 righteous along with the wicked in Sodom? Again, God says, no, I won't. Now again, verse 31, we're down to, if there's only 20, Lord, will you destroy the 20? No, Abraham. Verse 32, okay, Lord, if there's 10 righteous people, will you destroy the 10 along with the wicked? And God says no. And all I can say, now here's the thing, when you go and read that, that's if you go from chapter 18, I started at 22 and it ends around 33. And the last one, he stopped at 10. That was 6 times that Abraham kept coming back and saying, if it's this number, if it's this number, if it's this number, if it's this number. Abraham drilled down on the Lord 6 times. The Lord never became angry. The Lord never seemed to, it doesn't even say like he became angry, but Abraham knew that he was pushing the envelope with each question. And he says, Lord, please don't be angry, but let me ask you another time. One more time. And I find this so interesting because there's a plethora of emotions in here. I believe that God never intended to take the righteous with the wicked, but he was checking the heart of Abraham if he was going to be okay with that. And so Abraham's like, you know, be it not, Lord, like don't. This is not even who you are. I don't do that. And so I believe from the onset, God was already in alignment with thought and the way that Abraham wanted things to go for those that were righteous in Sodom. But I found it interesting that Abraham drilled down on the Lord with these questions 6 times, and 6 is the number of mankind. And so I thought, that's beautiful. And so Abraham, you see his compassion for those that are righteous. And you see that it's like Abraham is like, I know that you're angry about all the things that are going on in Sodom, Lord, but don't change who you are because of that. Like, well, there's righteous people still here that should be able to not be destroyed along with the wicked. And I believe God was so pleased with Abraham and how he had such compassion for those that were believers. And so now, you know, we already know about the Hebrews, the 3 Hebrew boys that was in the fiery furnace, and, you know, their famous logo, and a word that needs to be on every t-shirt, every baseball cap, every keychain. When they were talking to the king and they were going to be placed in the furnace, and they were like, we will not bow down. We're not going to. And they said, but even if, and I think that phrase right there, but, comma, even if our God does not deliver us, we will still not bow down. Even if. That is so strong that now on one side they're saying we believe that God is going to do something, that some kind of miracle, something is going to come about that is going to prevent us from dying right here. But even if it is our portion, we will still not bow down. We will go out in a blaze if that's necessary, but we will not bow down to a false god. And so you see boldness, the boldness in the face, and you can't get no more in your face than the heat of a furnace that has been turned up 7 times its normal temperature. And so there you see bold faith, courage. And so, you know, and you see the same in the Hebrews, those 3 Hebrews men, those young guys, their friend Daniel. He was in a similar situation, but he was thrown in a lion's den. And because he would not bow down and he would not change, you know, who he knew was his Lord and his Savior. And so he was thrown in the lion's den. Now, you never hear that he screamed and hollered and fought back and did all the things. He took it like a man, and there you can, he didn't say, but even if these lions have me for dinner, I will not bow down. And so what's so beautiful about that is that those 4 young men stood firm in the face of serious fear. But because of their courage, that king respected them so much. Not only that, but he saw the God that they served. And then he changed his whole conversation. He said, listen, tell all the townspeople, if they bow down to anything other than Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel's God, I'm going to burn down everything they own. And I thought to myself, well, dang, he really did change his mind. He said, because there's no other God that can do what he just saw happen. He saw the 4th man in the fire, and that Daniel was not eaten by the lions. He knew then that their God was the one and only true God. And, you know, I would not be doing this justice if I didn't talk about and finish talking about the feelings of men from our Bible. I have to talk about Job, because if anybody needs to stand in the hall of faith and get a round of applause for the suffering that he endured at the hand of the enemy, but given permission by God. And so Job was, you see Job in nothing but grief. Now he starts out, like, I love everybody. I'm here to help everybody. I'm going to encourage the people. He was well respected. He was a righteous man. He was a good and righteous man, but the devil wanted a piece of him. Oh, the devil wanted a piece of him, but he couldn't get to him because the Lord had a hedge of protection around him. And so, the Lord and Satan had a conversation. The Lord said, okay, go ahead. You can have a little turn at him, but you can't kill him. And so, Satan did everything to where, Job was wishing he had never been born and wanted to die. And those type of emotions, like he was on, like if you read the book of Job, it is a powerful book. And then was it 30-something chapters? And it's not until like, I think the last 1 or 2 chapters where you finally see a ray of light shining in such a gloomy book. And you're like, Lord, thank you for delivering him, because it is depressing. And, but Job was stripped of everything and every person, all of his children. His wife was like looking at him like she was disgusted, like, and you still believe in your God. She was just done with everything. Everything he owned was stripped away. And he lost everything. I believe it was in one day, all of his children, his livestock, everything. Then if that wasn't enough, then his body was attacked with sores, and just everything that could go wrong was there. Then his 3 friends come, and they come and sit with him, and they just sit there, let me tell it. Just keep pouring salt in the wounds. Just keep pouring a little more salt. And then at the end of the book, we see where, God, Adonai comes in, and he basically is telling Job, like, you need to go pray for your friends. You need to pray for them before I handle them. Pray for them. He said, but you were right, because Job expressed himself. Now God gave him, a little, a correction, some really harsh correction, but the whole time God was listening to Job and how he was venting his frustrations and his pain, and he couldn't understand, like, why, Lord? Like, I've done these things, and I've done these things, and I've done these things, and I thought I was doing what you would have expected of me. Why? And I believe God could trust him. God could trust him with that suffering. God could trust him with that pain, that he would not, just completely turn against God. But God respected Job because he was honest about his feelings. And because of that, he was able then to, heal Job and bless him exceedingly above and beyond all that he previously had. Returned, like the town was respecting, they all came out and was rejoicing with him. And I'm gonna tell you, you got to be careful the advice you be giving people and how you want to judge them and say certain things and all of that, because the first thing that Adonai said was, you need to go pray for your friends before I go handle them. So I was just like, oh, because none of the things that they were sharing with Job was edifying him. it was not, encouraging him, and you can just see how they was going back and forth in conversations. And Job is just like, no, I didn't do that. And I didn't do this. And he's just like, really expressing himself. All the things, all of the pain that he was feeling, he was grieving. Can you imagine? You're grieving the loss of all of the things that you have. You're grieving the loss of your children. You're grieving what you think is the loss of the God that you thought loved you. And so how could this happen when I know I haven't sinned consciously? The whole time I'm sure he's thinking, like, what did I do in the last month? What did I do in the last week? Like, you know how we sometimes start just festering on thoughts and you can't come up with anything. Well, the one thing that I want to encourage you with is just to know that God is such a compassionate God, but he would not have allowed that to happen to just anyone. But he knew he could trust Job. He knew that what he allowed the enemy to do to Job, that Job would not turn away from him. Because, the devil was like, I bet you if I do, I bet you the only reason he's serving you is because, he looked like he's doing real good. But I bet you if I take everything, he gonna damn your name and he's gonna turn away from you. And the Lord said, bet. and so the devil, he tried it all. He tried it all. And the Lord was like, see what I said? I know mine. That one right there, that's mine. And because he did not turn away from me, God blessed him with everything that was taken from him and even more. So I want you to just, from this, I want you to know that God is a big God. And if you are feeling any kind of way, in your life circumstances, where is God? And you're feeling, because, we hear a lot of times people are angry with God and they turn away from God. You can be angry with God and talk to him about it. Talk to him about it. Don't let the enemy use that anger as an open door to destroy you, because that is really what he wants to do. What Job did was he was grieving, he was angry, he was frustrated, he was confused, and he expressed all of that. And he kept pushing back on his friends that were telling him that you must have done something wrong for this to be happening to you. You must be sinning somewhere. You must be hiding it. There's a reason for this. But I want you to know that God respected Job's honesty with his feelings. And because of that, he was able to then bless him. And that right there was the 1-2 punch on the enemy right there. Because what the enemy meant for evil on Job, God turned it around to the abundance. And so be bold enough, be brave enough, love God enough to talk to him about whatever it is that you're feeling and going through, whether it's something that's happening in this world, in your relationships, or your relationship with him. Talk to him about those things. Talk to him about the real, raw emotions that you are feeling. And then look for some of the verses that I will have put on the screen. And then there's so many other stories. We're going to check out some of the women on the next video and some of those emotions that were there. And I hope that in these different individuals, as well as there's so many more in the Bible, we can see how God handles us with our emotions. And, it is the Bible that tells us how to do these things. But it also tells us to not let the sun go down on our wrath, on anger. So even if you need to vent your anger to God, get all of that up out of you, because it's bitterness in you. Get it out of you and then say, Lord, I may be wrong. I may be willing to say that you're wrong, because we don't know everything that God is doing or allowing to happen. He may be doing it to purify something in you, to strip away something in you so that you can shine brighter. And so even in the pain or whatever you may go through, end it with, Lord, your will be done. Your will be done. And, search your heart to make sure that you haven't opened some door, staying bitter and angry, whether it's at God or someone in your personal life, and just get these things out. God is a big God, and we are so small. We are nothing but mere dust, but God loves us so much that he wants us to have the best and purest relationship with him. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. I'm going to leave you with your feelings and hopefully you won't be bottling up those emotions and trying to portray yourself as this perfect Christian or this, God forbid, self-righteous. We all are human and we are all walking through a broken world, and we need a God that sees through the darkness and through all of the things that the enemy is trying to do. And we don't always have the eyes to see and understand that. And because of that, we need to hold on tight to God and trust him in the process. And I know it is not always easy. It is not always easy, but it is always God. All right. You guys be well, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.